Good morning, history students. We are in the final section of chapter 2. So let's get into it because it is a little bit longer than what we've had before. Ooh, sorry about that. All right, so today we're reading section 4, the civilization of Kush, and we're going to read the entire section today. So what's the connection? In sections 1, 2, and 3, you learned about the rise and fall of civilizations in ancient Egypt. Another civilization in early Africa was Kush. It is located near Egypt and was very similar. Okay, so we're no longer in Egypt, but we are near Egypt. So something to keep in mind, okay? So we're going to be doing a little bit of comparing today. Nubia. To the south of Egypt, the Nubians settled in farming villages and became strong warriors. The Egyptians were not alone in settling along the Nile River. Farther south, in present-day Sudan, another strong civilization arose. This was the region called Nubia, later known as Kush. So this is the same area, Nubia and Kush, same area. Okay, so synonyms. Historians do not know exactly when people arrived in Nubia. Evidence suggests the cattle herders arrived in about 2000 BC. They grazed their herds on the savannas or grassy plains. So savannas is another word for grassy plains that stretch across Africa south of the Sahara. Later, people settled in farming villages in Nubia. They grew crops, but they were also excellent hunters, skilled at using the bow and arrow. Soon, the Nubians began forming armies known for their fighting skills. The Kingdom of Kerma. The more powerful Nubian villages gradually took over the weaker ones and created the Kingdom of Kerma. Kerma developed close ties with Egypt to the north. The Egyptians were happy to trade for Kerma's cattle, gold, ivory, and enslaved people. They also admired Nubian skills in warfare and hired Nubian warriors to fight in their armies. Kerma became a wealthy kingdom. Its artisans made fine pottery, jewelry, and metal goods. Like Egyptian pharaohs, the kings of Kerma were buried in tombs that held precious stones, gold, jewelry, and pottery. These items were as splendid as those found in Egypt during the same time. So here we have a wall painting or a mural of princes offering rings and golds to an Egyptian ruler. So here you have a crossover of the Nubian society with Egyptian. Why did Egypt invade Nubia? As you learned earlier, the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III sent his armies into Nubia in 1400s BC. After a 50-year war, the kingdom of Kerma collapsed, and the Egyptians took control of much of Nubia. They ruled the Nubians for the next 700 years. During this time, the people of Nubia adopted many Egyptian ways. They began to worship Egyptian gods and goddesses along with their own. They learned how to work copper and bronze and changed Egyptian hieroglyphics to fit their own language. As people and goods continued to pass between Nubia and Egypt, the two cultures mixed. So this happens with a lot of the cultures, and it's part of the reason that we're learning about these ancient cultures, because a lot of the things that we do now are mixes from other cultures, including our alphabet. We did kind of the same thing the Nubians did. We took somebody else's and made it work for the kinds of words that we have. The rise of Kush. The people of Kush devoted themselves to ironworking and grew wealthy from trade. As Egypt declined at the end of the New Kingdom, Nubians saw their chance to break away. By 850 BC, a Nubian group had formed the independent kingdom of Kush. For the next few centuries, powerful Kushite kings ruled from the city of Napata. Napata was a favorable location. It stood along the upper Nile, where trade caravans crossed the river. Caravans soon carried gold, ivory, valuable woods, and other goods from Kush to Egypt. I just want to take a quick break to stop and look at this map. We're still having some difficulties with maps, so please look at this map carefully. When I'm looking at the key, the red area is the Kingdom of Kush. We can see it just below the Kingdom of Egypt, right? We can see where Napata is. And then further down, we see Meroe. To the east, which is to the right, we see the Red Sea. To the left or the west, we see the Sahara, which is the large desert we have read about earlier. In time, Kush became rich enough and strong enough to take control of Egypt. About 750 BC, a Kushite king named Kashta headed north with a powerful army. His soldiers began the conquest of Egypt that his son Pi completed in 728 BC. Pi founded a dynasty that ruled both Egypt and Kush from Napata. The kings of Kush greatly admired Egyptian culture. In Napata, they built white sandstone temples and monuments similar to those of the Egyptians. The Kushites also built small pyramids in which they buried their kings. The ruins of these pyramids can still be seen today. The importance of iron. Cush's rule in Egypt did not last long. During the 600s BC, the Assyrians invaded Egypt. Armed with iron weapons, they drove the Kushites back to their homeland in the south. Despite their losses, the Kushites gained something from the Assyrians, the secret of making iron. The Kushites became the first Africans to devote themselves to ironworking. Soon, farmers in Kush were using iron for their hoes and plows instead of copper or stone. With these superior tools, they were able to grow large amounts of grain and other crops. Kush warriors also began using iron spears and swords, increasing their military power. Meanwhile, traders from Kush carried iron products and enslaved people as far away as Arabia, India, and China. In return, they brought back cotton, textiles, and other goods. A new capital. About 540 BC, Kush's rulers left Napata and moved farther south to be out of the Assyrians' reach. In the city of Meroe, they set up a royal court. Like Napata, the new capital had access to the Nile River for trade and transportation. The rocky desert east of Meroe, however, contained rich deposits of iron ore. As a result, Meroe became not only a trading city, but also a center for making iron. With their growing wealth, Kush's kings rebuilt Meroe to look like an Egyptian city. Small pyramids stood in the royal graveyard. A huge temple sat at the end of a grand avenue lined with sculptures of rams. Sandstone palaces and red brick houses had walls decorated with paintings or blue and yellow tiles. Building a profitable trade. Meroe became the center of a huge trading network that stretched north to Egypt's border and south into Central Africa. Kush's traders received leopard skins and valuable woods from the interior of Africa. They traded these goods along with enslaved workers and their own iron products to people throughout the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean area. Kush remained a great trading power for some 600 years. By the AD 200s, though, the kingdom began to weaken. As Kush declined, another kingdom rose to take its place. The kingdom called Axum was located in what is today the country of Ethiopia. Around AD 350, the armies of Axum burned Meroe to the ground. You will read more about the kingdom of Axum when you study Africa. Okay, so we've reached the end of section 4. So your homework today, or your classwork today, as the case may be, is to create. I've already created the diagram for you, but basically you're answering critical thinking question number 3, sequencing. So that's putting events in order from beginning to end. This is a really important skill in reading informational text, reading literature text as well. So I've already drawn the diagram for you that looks like this. You're going to show the events that led up to the Kushite conquest of Egypt. Guys, when you're picking these events, they're the main idea important events for this particular topic. which is only the Kushite conquest of Egypt. So, what 3 events in the correct order led to the Kush taking over Egypt? Okay, so remember, you're looking for the 3 main ideas. It's that cause and effect sequence. What happened first, then, next, and the last would be the Kush conquest. Okay, so you're only picking 3 events. Each one of those events is worth 2 points. Please put it in enough detail in it that I know what it is. It doesn't have to be a sentence in this case because it is a diagram, but it does need to be a complete answer. So think about that very carefully when you're completing the diagram. Okay? Ooh, that's a little bit of crazy for you, isn't it? All right. So I can't wait to see what you come up with for your sequencing diagrams, and we will continue on to the chapter review tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon.